The very first thing we're going to do this evening is hear from Robert Matthew Reed. He is a case manager at Integrity and Fidelity Not-for-Profit, and also from Orion Meadows, who's a trainer with the Institute for Nonviolence in Chicago. We're really honored to have them both here this evening to perform their original spoken word.
How's everyone? Yes, so my name's Orion Meadows. I'm a Kingian nonviolence trainer for the Institute for Nonviolence Chicago. For those that don't know what Kingian is, it's Dr. King philosophy of nonviolence. They were doing that during the Civil Rights Movement, so that's the work that I do here in Chicago and throughout the state of Illinois. And I myself am system impacted. I originally had a 45-year prison sentence. I ended up serving 24 years, and I've been home a little over 4 years now. So. I'm a three-time published author, and I have won 2 national spoken word awards since I've been home. So, yeah. And a little bit before I start, so John Howard Association, and like I said, it's a privilege and it's an honor to be here to present before you. But the first thing that I thought about was when I was in prison, and when the John Howard Association would come to visit the prison, I knew that they were there. Now, do you want to know how I knew? The good food. The good food. And they made sure that everything was nice and clean or whatever. You know, and so that's how we knew. So just know that when you guys go back, it's not like that 98% of the time. All right? All right, so this piece that I have is entitled Pontiac. How many of you have heard of Pontiac? Okay, well, that's a lot of hands, so then you're all familiar with that. So this was inspired by Pontiac. I'm out here in this wilderness of concrete and steel, where the men turn mad beasts like Nebuchadnezzar in exile. The ambience is so chaotic that it seems like the mind's being lifted to the outer limits of the twilight zone. And within a blink of an eye, a moment of solace can convolute into a conundrum as bizarre as an episode from the X-Files. Pontiac. North House, a place where that vociferous acrimony rises as you approach the entrance. And the sound of voices tortured echoes throughout the halls, drowning any voice of reason while effervescent deranged screams rage like a violent tempest. Pontiac. North House, where they don't just build excitement, man, they build drama. And what I mean is the drama builds when you hear those stripers and level E's bugging up, sending it up with the orange crush, bodies crashing to the walls, feel the vibration thrill through the air as you feel from the chill with the trauma. Pontiac, where they make a sound with their hands like, that's that soul clap. That's that noise, audible expression of a soul that's trapped, a captive feeling like his mind been swallowed in a hole that's black, and the anger mixed with hopelessness so immense you just can't hold it back, and then they get on your door like, and dare you to get out there. An invitation to a brutal duel in psychological warfare. See, this is not a conversation. This is verbal emasculation, character assassination. Some can't cope with the smoke, so they reach for the rope or forge instruments with acute points to commence committing slashings and lacerations. And end up on 4 points. Leg, arm, leg, spread out like a crucifixion. Only thing you can move is your head, stuck looking up at the ceiling, limbs strapped to the bed. Well, back on the galleries, it's that same old banging on doors, waging a war of deprecatory slurs and epithets. The clamor from outside like a beast of rage here to roar. Pontiac. North House, a place where its reputation doesn't just precede itself. When you experience it live in the flesh and exceeds itself. Man, I've seen the health of men's minds debilitate to such a degree you think that one's mental state debased to a level so primal that it evolved into a lesser intelligent species. Isolated in cages with a bar like monkeys and apes, cracking amidst the belly of the beast like Jonah, so far gone in their head that they've relegated to playing with excrement and hurling their feces. See, this sickness got some men so twisted to the mismethod to the madness, strategy in its depravity, And if you don't have a strong grip on reality, you'll be like Dorothy in this odd, Oz-like dimensional existence. You get lifted off your foundation and pulled in by the sheer strength of its gravity. Pontiac. North House. You could die or lose your mind here. Matter of fact, losing your mind is like a simulation of dying. When you hear the sound of disgruntled grown men woofing to the beat, it's reminiscent to the chant of the warrior over the drums crying, Pontiac. North House, a place where many souls have wandered, lying on their bunks at night reflecting on opportunities of a youth squandered, engulfed with a heart full of darkness and the pain of well of tears in their eyes, fighting to survive the mania of this asylum, looking to the heavens and hoping you make it out alive from Pontiac. North House, depicted in spirit and truth. I take this word like Jesus took the bread of his body and give it to you. Jehovah's my witness. I experienced the wilderness, making my word flesh because my testimony means that I'm living proof. Now that's a shutdown. So thank you, Orion, Meadows. If you want to follow my work, you can follow me in my name, Orion, Orion, Meadows. I'm on all platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and thank you.
I was trying to figure out what I do. Can everybody hear me? All right. I am Robert Matthew Reed. I spent 27 years in the IDOC, Department of Corrections. And I was actually telling a couple of people tonight how the John Howard Association made sure we had safe hygiene, like toilet, fresh running water. If you ever have looked at Stateville Correctional Center, Pontiac Correctional Center, Menard Correctional Center, and unfortunately or fortunately, I was in Tams. So I spent a lot of my time in segregation, and I wrote this poem for all of us, so to speak. It's my ID number, B62725. We plant seeds in the fertile soil which fail to bring forth fruit. Because when no man is home to tend the garden, the enemy destroys the root. So in an environment where a child's conscience is formed by what they see, think, and feel, our children inherit wounds that scar but never heal. As they embrace a reality which imprisons them within their own skin, seeking but never finding direction for a life burdened by men who give nothing of themselves but would take all that they can get from a community which has lost the power to protect its women and kids, while the older generation sits in silence as our culture dissolves into an unspeakable violence. Mothers kneel in the darkness praying to the Most High God that he'll protect their fathers. In a world where violence is the language of the voiceless, we lose out on our tomorrows every time we have to bury another one of our sons or our daughters who dream of becoming doctors, musicians, and lawyers, but are criminalized before they take their first steps and are given prison numbers, B62725. Thank you.
I want to thank Orion and Robert for those incredible pieces of work. Truly amazing and so deeply personal. So thank you for sharing that with all of us. I also want to make clear, Orion, we're aware. And sometimes, on a really hard day, on a really difficult day, I know I will leave a visit and think to myself, well, if someone got fried chicken today, maybe that's the best I could do today. So, for those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Jenny Volan-Katz. I'm the Executive Director of the John Howard Association, and I want to welcome everybody to our annual meeting. I'd like to start this evening by recognizing the people who make our work possible. And first and foremost, that's the John Howard Association staff. It is their efforts day in and day out that drive our mission forward and touch the lives of people who are incarcerated. Our impact would not be possible without the dedication and talent of our team. Dan Hoffman, Rebecca Pellegrino, Katie Reinick, David Staples, Anthony Thomas, Nora Thompson, and Gwynn Troyer. I am truly grateful to work with all of you. I also want to thank the John Howard Association Board of Directors, the Young Professionals Board, the Directors Circle, all of our volunteers, supporters, and donors. Every one of you plays a vital role in advancing our mission and work. I also want to welcome and acknowledge all of our collaborators and partners from within and outside of government. Combative postures do not advance change. Listening and working together does. And finally, we're grateful for the generous support of our platinum sponsors, the Bloom Family Charitable Foundation, Brian Massengill and Mayor Brown, Parole Illinois, Virginia Stein and Roland Roaches, Ann and Bob Sullivan, and Paul and Sarah Jane Titterton, and GATX. Thank you all for your support. For 124 years, JHA has been going into prisons to increase transparency and hold government accountable for how the system operates and how the people inside are treated, understanding that we cannot change what we do not know about. At JHA, we believe that every person deserves dignity and respect, that what happens to people in prison matters, and that regardless of what someone has done or why they're in prison, our shared humanity connects us and compels us to stand up for those who are vulnerable due to their lack of liberty and inability to access the world outside of prison walls. My plan this evening, the remarks I originally prepared, focused on the importance of oversight in our current world, where trust in government has been eroded and accountability is absent. Enabling and empowering oversight of the most invasive government functions, such as holding people in custody, becomes even more critical. We are currently surrounded by the ravages of power left unrestrained and unchecked, and I stand by this. However, at the last minute, I decided that telling you about the need for oversight doesn't really do the work we do and the impact we have at JHA justice. So instead, I'm going to give you an example of what oversight can do. Many of you are aware that there has been a move by the Illinois Department of Corrections to scan incoming mail to people who are incarcerated. This is something that came about fairly recently, but really we can go back to the summer of 2024 when staff was complaining about exposure to drugs and overdoses. Many of these were unsubstantiated. They were leaving in ambulances. They were making a lot of claims, and there was really no data to back up these claims. So we heard a lot of things, but we didn't have evidence to support some of what was being claimed. There was also claims of increased use of Narcan, and so we did what a reasonable group of people would do. We asked for the data, and we got a little bit of it, but we didn't get it readily, and we didn't get it frequently. And so we worked with Senator Graciela Guzman and with Representative Greg Johnson on a bill to mandate the collection of prison contraband data. Because before you take away people's original mail, because you think it's the genesis of drug-soaked papers that are being smoked on the living units in the prison, you should really be sure that that's how the drugs are getting into the prisons. So with the leadership of Senator Guzman and Representative Johnson, we worked on a bill that was passed and signed into law that mandates the collection of important data that will tell us how the contraband is getting into prisons, where it's being found, who's responsible for bringing it in, all of which can help guide effective solutions to keeping drugs out of prisons. Because here's the other thing I can tell you that we witnessed ourselves at the John Howard Association. We saw the smoke on the living units. We smelled the acrid smoke that comes from smoking paper that has been soaked in something, whether it's illegal drugs or a toxic chemical, unclear. We also know that in a situation where your system is understaffed and people are living in lockdown-like conditions, the use of drugs is most likely going to go up. So there were a lot of different things happening at the same time, and one of the unique features of the John Howard Association is we were there to see it. We were there to see that there is a problem, but the solution you're proposing isn't necessarily going to solve that problem, and it's gonna hurt a lot of people. So I say all this and I explain the situation to all of you because I think that this is the power of oversight. It is the ability to come to a conversation and to understand and see the issue from a holistic perspective, understanding correctional operations well enough to ask the questions, why aren't you doing other things to keep drugs out of prisons? Because research tells us that staff are often the way contraband comes into prisons. So have you increased searches when it comes to staff? Have you invested in high-tech body scanning equipment? Where are the drug-sniffing dogs outside the prisons? There are other things you could be doing to detect the contraband that you claim is coming in through the mail that's so problematic and dangerous to the people who live and the people who work inside our prisons. It is asking these questions, it is understanding the needed data points, it is advocating for them so that we can advocate for the people who are incarcerated. We know how important original mail is to them. We know that there are letters people get that are incredibly meaningful to them, letters that they will hold on to for years and decades, that are a touchstone to family, to meaningful connection. And not having that piece of paper, not having that to hold on to, is deeply painful for a lot of individuals. So to take that away without proof that that's going to keep people safe seems to us not just unfair and slightly inhumane, it's also bad policy because we have no reason to believe that's going to be an effective solution. So, the Illinois Department of Corrections has started scanning mail. However, we are still in battle over this. We will be testifying at the upcoming hearings with the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. We are submitting public testimony. We are talking to the agency about other things they can be doing, that they should be doing, and hoping that we can ameliorate the pain that this is going to cause folks. So when we can't come forward and solve the problem directly, we are able to hold the agency accountable. We are able to find other ways to work with people so that we can ensure that the people in prison are less damaged, are less hurt, are able to avoid as much pain as is possible. We are out front advocating to stop universal mail scanning, and it's in this it's in this effort that you can see the heart of JHA's mission and work, recognizing the need to address issues in ways that will keep everyone who lives and works in our prisons safe and are both effective and take into account the needs and humanity of the people who are incarcerated. This is where independent prison oversight is uniquely situated to inform stakeholders and drive system change. It is the place where mandate meets execution and aspiration meets reality. Your support and partnership are essential to our ability to be in prisons. This is critical to further reforms. It's critical to know what issues we need to be advocating for. It is critical to hold IDOC and our government accountable for the conditions the people who are incarcerated live in and the treatment they receive. So thank you for being part of this evening, but thank you for being part of our work as well and mission. It is your support that helps us keep going, and it allows us to keep doing this very important work. So I am grateful to all of you. That's it. So I now have the great honor and privilege to introduce the 2025 award winners. Every year, JHA honors leaders, citizens, advocates, and partners in prison reform for their commitment to a fair, equitable, and humane system in support of JHA's mission. I'm pleased to announce this year's winner. The Commitment to Change Award is being presented to Yakov Delaney of the Justice, Equity, and Opportunity Initiative. Which, for those who don't know, is part of the Office of Lieutenant Governor. This is in recognition of Yakov's tireless commitment to increasing system transparency and accountability and to fighting for a more equitable, fair, and just criminal legal system, as well as improved outcomes for system-impacted people. We deeply appreciate the work he does and the collaborations we've been able to have together. So Yakov, please join me on stage and we can present you with your award. Next, we have our Excellent in Research Award. We'd like to present this award to Amanda Ward, part of the Loyola University Center for Criminal Justice, in recognition of Amanda's dedication and commitment to rigorous and thorough data collection and research on justice-involved individuals and systems, which fuels impactful reform efforts and system change. There she is. So unfortunately, unless is the Chief of Staff to Senator Guzman present? Okay, I didn't want to speak out of turn. There was a chance that they were going to be able to join us, but unfortunately, they, like Senator Guzman, are in Springfield for the veto session. So unfortunately, our next award winners will not be able to come up here and accept their awards in person, but we have been in touch with them, and we'll make sure that they receive them. Thank you. This year, we'd like to honor Illinois State Senator Graciela Guzman and Illinois State Representative Greg Johnson for their leadership in increasing transparency within our prison system, with the goals of improving safety as well as informing impactful and effective policymaking. These are the two legislators that authored and led the charge on the legislation to collect prison contraband data and make it publicly available. We're deeply grateful for their commitment and hard work. To them. And we'd like to give the Outstanding Dedication Award to Elaine Nekritz. Elaine is a former state representative, and she is also a lobbyist. She is also John Howard Association's lobbyist. We want to recognize her distinguished career in public service and longstanding commitment to both criminal justice reform efforts in Illinois and furthering the mission of the work of JHA. She is a champion for change and a really important partner to JHA, and we're really grateful for her for advancing change in all the different roles she has had. So please join me one more time in congratulating our 2025 award winners. For everybody, thank you. There we go. So now we're getting to the good part. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our board president, Paul Titterton, who has the honor of introducing our keynote speaker this evening. Paul has been on JHA's board for 8 years, involved in the governance of the organization, and he supports us in many other ways. We are grateful to him, pleased he can be here, and appreciate his introduction of our keynote speaker.
All right, thank you, Jenny, and it is my distinct pleasure to be here. I always look forward to the JHA's annual event, and it's a particular pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker tonight. So tonight we have with us Shelley Winner, and Shelley is a justice reform advocate, entrepreneur, and founder of the Winner's Circle, which is a transformative digital training program that equips incarcerated individuals with vocational and mindset development tools. Drawing from her lived experience, Shelley empowers justice-impacted people with the skills and belief systems needed to succeed in business and in life. She has shared her story on the TEDx platform and was featured on PBS NewsHour for her journey overcoming bias in the tech industry. Her mission is to bridge the gap between incarceration and opportunity by reducing recidivism and unlocking human potential behind the walls. So with that, I'd like you all to join me in giving a rousing welcome to Shelley Winner.
Thank you guys so much. What an honor it is to be here tonight, supporting such an incredible organization that has been changing lives of so many justice-impacted people. JHA, a big heartfelt thank you for honoring me tonight and bringing me here to share my story with everybody. So, I'll never forget the moment when the feds kicked down my door, yelling, "Shelley Winner, come out with your hands up." They were there to arrest me on drug trafficking charges. They put the handcuffs on me, and they took me down to the local jail, where I went through some of the worst withdrawals of my life, withdrawing from meth and heroin. And to make matters worse, I found out I was pregnant. You know, looking back on that moment today, I can honestly say I am so incredibly grateful for my arrest, because I don't think my son would be here otherwise. A few days later, I stood before the judge awaiting my arraignment. You guys hear me okay? And the judge called my name. I walked to the front. He looked at me and he said, "Miss Winner, these charges against you are very serious charges, carrying a mandatory minimum sentencing guideline of 10 years. Oh, thank you. I couldn't. Is it on? Check, check. Oh. Here we go. Carrying a mandatory minimum sentencing guideline of 10 years. And I couldn't believe it when he said that to me. Did he really just say 10 years? Those words hit me like a freight train, because I knew in that moment that I had just completely destroyed my life. Despite my last name being Winner, I never felt like one. Growing up from the moment I was born, it actually seemed like I was destined to lose. Growing up in poverty with teenage parents didn't exactly set me up for success. My father was in and out of prison most of my life for drugs and alcohol. My mother, overwhelmed by the weight of the responsibility to care for 2 young children on her own, she would often just leave us at a family member's house where we were unsupervised and basically raised ourselves. By the time I was 11 years old, my dad got me drunk for the first time. My dad was a partier, and so this was his way of bonding with me. For a short period of time, I lived with him while I was in high school, and he started selling drugs from our home. He told me there was one rule of the house, that if I ever wanted to do any hard drugs, that I had to bring them home and do them with him. You know, a sad statistic is that 70% of children with an incarcerated parent end up following in the footsteps of their parent right to prison. Not exactly the best legacy to inherit, is it? And I refer to this as a losing loop. It's like this repetitive cycle of toxicity that's just passed down from family member to family member, and it really never goes away unless somebody takes a stand to break that cycle, but it's not easy. So I was stuck in this losing loop. I made bad life choices. I would lie, I would cheat, I would steal just to get another high. And I lived my life in complete bondage to my addiction for over 2 decades. Finally, there I was in the prison system, living up to every statistic. I had just given birth to my son 2 months prior to starting my sentence, and I was really hopeless. I knew that there was another way of living that was available to me, but I didn't know how to get there. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the tools. But then a spark of hope came over me once I realized that the prison that I was at offered so many rehabilitative programs. It was a prison in the Bay Area that was local. It was easily accessible, and so it was just flooded with so many volunteers bringing in the most incredible programs. And so I spent my entire time incarcerated just doing personal development. I felt very fortunate because I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he was telling me that he never had access to rehabilitative programs when he was incarcerated. And you know what? I think if he had, he might still be here today. You know, one study says that 44% of prisons offer rehabilitative programming, and I'm so incredibly grateful for those 44% of prisons, but wouldn't it be great to see that 100% of prisons offered rehabilitative programming? And of the prisons that do have these programs, there's a lot of barriers to in-person programming. If there's a lockdown, there's no programming happening. If there's a lack of space, you know, a prison can only hold so many programs. If there's unsupportive staff, I know there's been staff that have sabotaged programming. If there's a lack of space in the program itself, there's a prison with 1,000 women, and we'd get programs that hold 25 people. So I was like, if you didn't make it to that sign-up list right away, you got put on a wait list, and sometimes that wait list was for years. And many people ended up leaving prison, never having access to an incredible program that could have changed their life. Fortunately for me, I was able to get into the majority of the programs that I signed up for. And I can honestly say that by the time I left prison, I was completely transformed. I was operating on a high frequency, and I was ready to get out and take over the world. So I left prison, and I had to finish the remainder of my sentence at a halfway house. And man, I hit the ground running. The first thing I did was I enrolled in a college, because I always had this dream of working at a big tech company one day. I've always had this affinity for technology. It started when I was 23, when I bought my first computer. And I learned how to build and fix computers. I got really good at it. I even started my own computer repair business, but it was actually like my side hustle to my drug dealing, which it shouldn't have been, but it was. But I know that even getting a degree, getting into the tech world was going to be a challenge for me, because I had this criminal record looming over me like this dark cloud. But regardless, I couldn't focus on that. I couldn't stay in that negative mindset. I had to have hope. And so instead of focusing on that, I just pursued my education and was top of my class. And I knew that one day I would find a company that would see me for who I am today and not the mistakes of my past and give me that chance. Well, one day, I walk into the Microsoft store, and I was talking to the employee there, and they mentioned that they were hiring. So I thought, this is perfect, man. This is an entry-level position, working in the retail store. I have the skills for this. You know, maybe I'll apply, get my foot in the door, work really, really hard, and then work my way into corporate making the big bucks. You know what I mean? So I went home, I applied, and like within a week, I got a call back for an interview. Man, that was such an exciting moment for me. And so I prepared for that interview like my life depended on it, because in many ways, it really did. And so when I went into that interview, I nailed it, man. I did so good. She hired me right on the spot. Now here I was, fresh out of prison, and now I just got a job offer with one of the biggest tech companies in the world. You know what this meant? This meant that my future was going to be bright. This meant that me and my son were going to be okay. And then she told me that the job offer was contingent upon the background check passing. And that's when my heart sank to my stomach. And I realized that this opportunity will probably be stripped away. So I went back home. I filled out the background check information. About a month later, the results came in, and my background check had been flagged. Ultimately, they ended up rescinding my job offer, and I was so embarrassed. I mean, I was so proud of myself. I had told everybody. I had posted it on social media. I had shouted from the rooftops, I got the job at Microsoft, and now what? Now I was going to have to go back and tell everybody I really didn't get the job because I'm a loser with a criminal record. And that's really what it felt like. But fortunately for me, I lived in a very progressive city, and they had a special law called the Fair Chance Ordinance. And this law protects people with criminal records from discrimination. And so I was the first person to ever leverage this law against Microsoft. It was a fairly new law. I think it came out in 2016, 2017. So I gotten out in 2019. No, 2017. So maybe it started in 2012. But anyway, so it was a new law, and they had never heard of this law because no one had ever leveraged it. And so needless to say, when they found out about this law, they weren't too thrilled. But I didn't care. I was going to stand my ground and fight for this job because I knew I deserved it. And so we went back and forth for months. And they came up with every reason. Well, she hasn't been out of prison long enough. What if she relapses? She's a liability. We can't trust her. You know, all the same reasons most companies would give. So finally, after they realized there really wasn't much else they could do, there was this law protecting me. So they ended up giving me the job. And I couldn't have been more happier because I didn't care. They didn't want me. I didn't care. I'm working for one of the biggest tech companies in the world. Give it up. Yeah. And man, let me tell you, I could have been in a victim mindset and been like, oh, yeah, Microsoft. No, man. I was like, thank you, Microsoft. Thank you. Even though I forced you, thank you. And, you know, I made a decision that day that I was going to prove to them what I was capable of. That I was also going to blaze a trail for every other formerly incarcerated, justice-impacted person out there. So my first day on the job felt like a dream. I had to pinch myself. I'm like, is this real? Am I really working for Microsoft right now? And I truly believe that my time behind bars gave me an advantage over all my other employees, or all the other employees, because to me, this wasn't just a job. This was a chance to rewrite my story and my narrative and build a future that I thought was once impossible. And so I showed up every single day, ready to prove that I belonged with the attitude of gratitude. And you know what? that dream of working my way into corporate, well, let me tell you, that type of an attitude, it paid off. Because in just 18 months, I worked my way into corporate, landing my dream job, doing business-to-business sales. Yeah. One of the most, he was there, my husband's here tonight. He was there when I got that job offer. He started crying. It was so sweet. And you know what's more incredible? Is Microsoft, when they saw how great of an employee I was, they really did champion me. They embraced me. You know, so I'm not mad. And in a full circle moment, they even let PBS NewsHour do a full feature on my story and how I got into Microsoft and being the first justice-impacted person they'd ever hired. And this is proof that second chances don't just change lives. They change companies, they change perspectives, and they change industries. Yeah. And I am incredibly proud to say that I've worked for that company for over 8 years. I was one of their top performing employees, and I even became their #1 computer sales rep in the world. I won one of their most prestigious awards called Gold Club. So this is an award that every Microsoft employee dreams of winning. Less than 2% of Microsoft employees achieve this. And we're talking about a company that hires the brightest and the smartest people, Ivy League graduates. I mean, I barely graduated high school. And here I am winning the Gold Club Award. But you know what made that possible? Wasn't that I was smarter than everybody. It was because of all the personal development that I had done that given me the power to step into my true potential. That's really, thank you. But what's even more meaningful than all of my personal success is the impact that it's had beyond me. Because Microsoft changed their hiring policies. They became a fair chance employer, and they even joined the Second Chance Business Coalition, making a public statement about being a fair chance employer. I even helped start a program on the inside to train justice-impacted people, and many justice-impacted people are now working at Microsoft. So imagine, woo! Yeah. Now imagine if I'd given up. I wouldn't be standing on this stage today sharing my story with you. And I ask you to share my story too. You know why? Because stories have power to change policy, shift perspectives, open doors for others. And let's be honest, Microsoft's a big company with an amazing brand. And what Microsoft does, other companies follow suit. So if a company like Microsoft can hire somebody with a criminal record, then so can every other employer out there. Amen. Looking back on my journey, one thing became clear to me was that I needed to create a path for others. And really allow them, create a path that allows them to break free from the stigma of their past and really step into their true potential and build their lives with dignity. And so my mission is to rehabilitate the justice-impacted community and help them by finding not just jobs, but actual careers with a living wage. I want to build a future where second chances aren't the exception, they're the standard. And so to bridge this critical gap, I launched a tech company called Winner's Circle. Hey. We are revolutionizing rehabilitation and workforce development. So we really take this holistic approach. It's a digital one-stop shop, not only for personal development, but professional development. We also created an AI tool that matches our graduates with fair chance employers in their area that they're being released to. So pretty amazing. And I came up with this idea really because of all the barriers that I experienced to programming while I was incarcerated. And I feel everyone who wants the opportunity to learn and grow should have access to it whenever they want. And that's what we've been able to achieve with Winner Circle. So we brought it directly into the prisons by launching it on the tablets and the laptops that they have. So now it's accessible at a larger scale. I mean, even the most remote prisons that, a lot of programs are often non-existent because they're so far out in the middle of nowhere, now have access to programming. Yeah. No more waiting lists. If they have a tablet or a computer, they have the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to start building a future. Our mission is simple: help people break free from the losing loop and join the winner's circle. Woo! I believe that having someone with lived experience leading a rehabilitative program is far more impactful. Because when participants hear my story and they realize that I've been in their shoes, the message hits differently. It becomes real. It becomes possible. And I hear all the time, Shelley, if you can do it, I know I can. And so we are now launched in 16 facilities across the United States. Hey! And our goal is really to reach every prison that has the capability to support our digital program globally within 5 years. So anyone interested in helping me expand this program into more facilities, please feel free. There's a QR code on the piano when you walked in. Connect with me, let me know. Would love to, scale this into more prisons. There's over 6,214 prisons in the U.S., or correctional facilities. It ranges between prisons, jails, and juvenile detention centers, and I would love to be in all of them if I can. So when I look back on my journey from a prison cell to standing here today, I know one thing is for certain, that people can change when given the chance. But chances don't happen by accident. They happen because of organizations like John Howard Association. And they refuse to give up on people that fight. They fight for fairness, dignity, and rehabilitation inside the system that too often forgets the word human. JHA's work is what bridges the gap between punishment and purpose. And without that kind of advocacy, without people like you supporting it, so many potential success stories never get written. So tonight, I want to ask you from my heart, if my story moved you, if you believe in second chances and redemption, and in breaking the losing loop for good, then please stand with JHA by donating. Your donation, no matter the amount, isn't just a contribution, it's an investment in humanity. It keeps hope alive for the men and women still fighting to rebuild their lives. Thank you, John Howard Association, for the incredible work that you do, and thank you all tonight for believing in second chances, because I wouldn't be here today without them. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I know we all just applauded, but can we do it one more time? Because Shelley's that great. So before we move on, we do have time to take a couple questions from the audience, and Shelley has graciously agreed to hang out here for a little bit more if people are interested in asking some questions. So Rebecca Pellegrino from John Howard has the microphone, and she will come to you.
Hi. I go. Wait. Oh. Let me see if this is on. Hold on. Check, check. Oh, it's on. We're good. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for sharing. I wanted to ask you, when you were incarcerated, what type of programming did you find most useful or personally fulfilling?
The most, the programs that really helped me break free from my victim mindset and my past really was doing some inner child work and really dealing with going back into that moment and like dealing with it from a child's perspective. Another program that was really impactful for me was a class on forgiveness, learning how to forgive others, not only others, but myself included. I mean, how many times do we feel so justified in our anger towards somebody, and then we end up drinking poison hoping they die? You know, and so that was a profound program. I did a communication course. I learned guitar. I learned sign language. I mean, I really came out of prison completely transformed. I know not everybody has that experience, but that's what I'm looking to create for all prisons, no matter where they're located. So, but yeah, those were some of my favorite programs. Thank you.
What would you say some of the most influential programs that Winner's Circle has been involved with are?
Well, some of the
What work has it done that you find the most fulfilling and most impactful personally?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you that well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I need to get better about mics. What work with Winner's Circle do you think has been the most impactful and fulfilling personally? What do you think has most impacted people that are just as impacted?
I think when they hear my story, they realize what's available to them. I think as humans, especially people, I mean, not just people incarcerated, but people in general, we limit ourselves from stepping into our true potential because of fear. And so I teach them how to, I heard someone snapping over here. I teach them how to learn to dance with their fear rather than letting it hold them back. And when they hear my story, it's almost as if for the first time, they realize what's available to them. And so being able to do this work, I open up the program with sharing my story on the tablets. It's a video series, and I do a bunch of different topics. The first phase is all mindset work, really working to rewire the person's brain so that they can get out of the victim mindset because it's not going to serve them. We want them to become empowered, and so I teach them courses that or correlate with that. Second phase, we teach career and life skills. And then the final phase is we teach them vocational training. They have hundreds of different trainings that they can choose from. But yeah, I think hopefully I answered your question. Yeah. Yeah. We got one over here. I think she had her hand up too.
Is this a good one? Yes, building on that, can you talk about what you, as a digital platform, digital operation, what you do on the platforms in the prisons, perhaps beyond education? Do you connect people with services outside of prison? And what are the challenges that you have faced in operating on tablets in prison? Thank you.
I'd say the challenge is with some facilities is they don't have the staff, the IT department to help support, because we have to work with them to get the program onto the tablets. We also, if they don't, then we work with companies like Adovo to launch on their platform, and then they open up our programs to those tablets that we can't get on from a technical perspective. But I'd say that's the biggest hurdle that we have thus far. Who's next? Huh? Oh, what was the other part? I'm sorry. Yes, so we actually partnered with a staffing agency that handles that for us. And so what they not only do, they help with, making sure they're prepared for their job interview, but they also help with giving them a ride to the interview. They also help with giving them rides to the doctor, getting them a bus pass, whatever it is they need, they really go the extra mile for that. So I'm super grateful for that company to help me with that. Yeah, no worries.
In your programs or in your independent studies, have you run across any particular books or quotations or role models that contributed to your transformation?
Yes. There's a woman named Catherine Hoke. I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but she had a program called Defy Ventures, and it was she wrote a book called The Power of Second Chances, and she had a big influence in my life and really allowed me. She came into the prison, and she was the first person who ever told me that she looked me in my eye and she says, when you get out, you're going to do big things. And I felt it. I was like, wow, because nobody had ever spoken to me like that. Nobody had ever poured love into me. Nobody told me I could be whatever I wanted. Nobody told me how great I was, right? And it is what it is. But hearing that from her was really what impacted my life. And then reading her book was really great too. And I'm also really big into, for lack of better terms, like woo-woo, spirituality stuff, meditation, breath work. And so a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza, has anyone ever heard of him? No? Okay, you guys gotta look him up. Oh, yes. So I'm really big into him. He changed my life. I read his book, went to one of his retreats, and I learned about energy. And everything is energy. We operate at certain frequencies, and when you can understand your energy, if you can change your thoughts, you can change your energy, and if you change your energy, you're going to change your life. And the law of attraction is a basic law of the universe. They just don't teach us this in school. Like attracts like. Whatever frequency you're vibing on, you're going to attract those people, you're going to attract those situations, you're going to attract those circumstances. So if you don't like the way your life is right now, then you take a look at your energy and see, why am I manifesting this? So I teach that too. Okay, one more. One more question. All right.
I'm just, hi, how you doing?
Hi.
I just wanted to ask a question, because you did mention that, and it's a lot of parents in here, and I remember you saying that when you went to jail, you found out that you were pregnant.
Yeah.
How was that? How was that maintaining that relationship with your son? How was it when you got out, the transition, like those challenges that you experienced because of that?
So I was very fortunate because my mom took my son. So she raised him, and so I was able to do my time in peace, knowing that he was safe. When I got out, it was challenging because she didn't want to give him back. Yeah. So we ended up going through a pretty intense court battle. Ultimately, I ended up losing because he had been with her for such a long time that the courts just ruled in her favor. But that really, even though that was hard for me, I forgive her. Because you know what? She gives my son the most incredible life. And I get to see him whenever I want. So, but yeah, that was challenging for me, to say the least. But I had a choice in that matter. I had a choice. I could stay justified and I could stay angry at her, but then I would completely destroy the energy of my family. Not just with my mom, but it was affecting my brother. It was affecting my sister-in-law. It was affecting my husband. It was most importantly affecting my son. And so I had to choose forgiveness in that situation. And I can honestly say now, it's been a couple years, but our family's healed. Yeah.
Shelley, thank you. Thank you for sharing your incredible story with us. Thank you for the very difficult and important work you're doing, but mostly thank you for all the lives you're changing. Appreciate that. Now, it is my very great pleasure to introduce JHA's own David Staples and Anthony Thomas for this year's call to action. Okay. David and Tony started at JHA about 1.5 years ago. They are our community advocates. They lead our community engagement work, facilitating listening sessions, going into communities to talk about JHA's mission and work, helping people understand who we are and what we do as an organization, connecting with system-impacted people, and representing JHA at all sorts of convenings, conferences, and events. As formerly incarcerated individuals, David and Tony have known JHA for quite some time, and I'm thrilled that they have chosen to use their lived experiences, their unique insights, and talents and abilities to engage others to further our mission and work. It's my pleasure to work with David and Tony and also to welcome them up here for this year's call to action.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening. I'm super nervous, but we gonna make this work. My name is Anthony Thomas. I am a community engagement advocate for the John Howard Association, and I've held this post now for 1.5 years. It has been my honor to work alongside the thoughtful and dedicated staff at JHA as we endeavor to amplify the voices of the voiceless in all state-run carceral facilities. I am a system-impacted person. I've served a combined 30+ years in the custody of IDOC. I know firsthand the myriad of challenges, the debilitating conditions individuals must navigate in order to preserve self-respect and insanity. I will give you an example. It was a practice in the Illinois Department of Corrections, staff in Menard Correctional Center, that those being transferred to the facility for the first time be taken into a gymnasium off the bus, stripped naked, and while nude, surrounded by an army of IDOC staff, dressed in full combat gear, including a stick, an oak stick, that they frame on the walls up in the administration building of facilities. And then ordered to turn around, bend over, squat, and cough in front of all these men. These are the kind of inhumane conditions that the John Howard Association endeavors to expose to policymakers, stakeholders, and community alike. Because these men and women still in custody belong to us and deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. However, the policies and the degrading practices of IDOC run deep through the culture of the agency and requires all of us as a community to keep pressure on policymakers and IDOC administrators for impact to change. As an independent citizen-led agency with no state mandate, JHA operations depend on the financial donations of you, the supporters of prison oversight. So please continue your support of our work and donate. Help us continue our effort to impact as we work to depopulate state carceral systems and restore our loved ones to us better prepared for success.
Well said, Tony. That was well said, Tony. I'm David Staples. I'm the second half of this community engagement team. And together we're both proud to work at John Howard Association. I'm also, as you heard, I'm justice impacted as well. Having spent 29 years in prison, wrongly convicted for a crime I did not commit. So while in prison, one of the biggest things that occurred to me is, why did I have to go through that? Why did I have to be debased and go through inhumane conditions? And for a long time, I thought like that. And then it occurred to me, why does anybody have to go through this? Why does anybody have to be debased and go through inhumane conditions? Thank you. It was at that point the advocate in me was born, but I've yet to realize how I might approach my particular field of advocacy. Once released, I was exonerated and extracted from prison. And once that occurred, the first thing that I wanted to do was get far away as I can from the DOC. I wanted no parts of that. But there was a pull. I knew I left men back at that place, still going through what I went through, still having to endure inhumane conditions. He described it. I was triggered by that clap, Mr. Orion. I was triggered by that because that clap meant something to me. I knew what that clap meant, and it was a trigger for me, as I said over there. And I told my wife that clap. I remember that. And so, having gone through that and coming home and realizing that I had the opportunity, when that opportunity came to join an organization that I spent so many years writing, so many years encouraging others to write, to try to rectify what I was experiencing inside of there, I seized it. I said, yeah, I want to loan my voice, my lived experience, what I know, so that when you do come and the place is clean and sanitized for your visit, I can say, no, look under the mat, look under that stove. I can point out where the problems still lie and what was being hidden. You heard Tony say that JHA shines a light on issues. In fact, that was said by many of the speakers up here. And that's exactly what they do. They shine a light on it. But you also heard up here on more than one occasion that the support is needed to continue to shine that light. I'm gonna give you the first opportunity to know how that support can be taken right now. On the back of your program, there's a QR code. The program that you hold now is a QR code. You could access that QR code, take a photograph, and donate whatever. Any amount will help us continue our cause. Thank you.
So some of you might think that you work with the best people, but you'd be wrong, because I do. Okay, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I want to thank our performance artists, our spoken word performance artists. I want to thank Shelley for an amazing keynote speech. I want to thank our award winners for being here and for the incredible work they do. I want to thank David and Tony for giving of themselves and sharing their stories. I deeply appreciate the passion they pour into their work and the honesty and commitment that they bring. It's not easy to give of yourself as often as they do, and they do it on a regular basis. And I'm enormously touched that they do that, and that they do it for the John Howard Association. So thank you all. As we wrap up tonight, Rebecca would like me to mention that we are just a year away from our 125th anniversary. Yeah. So with your support, we'll keep going for another year, and then hopefully another 125 after that. I want to also take this moment to remind everybody that the work we do at the John Howard Association is certainly unique. But we are not alone in the space. We have partners in government, sometimes even in IDOC, and outside, in the advocacy world, in the direct service world. So we don't do it alone. Nobody does it alone. And so I want to extend our gratitude to everybody in the field who contributes to change, because it takes lots of pieces to come together to push forward. And I want to recognize those of you in the room who are doing fantastic work that allows us to keep doing what we're doing, where your work feeds our work and our work feeds your work, and together we are able to push the system little by little forward. So thank you. So we have a long way to go, but we've accomplished quite a lot. It's a hard thing to wake up in the morning and realize sometimes, but I think we have to celebrate the wins. And lately there have been some, and we should acknowledge them and enjoy them and appreciate them, and then we should get back in the trenches and keep fighting. So I will see you in the trenches. Thank you all for being here tonight.